as the memories of the unpunished murders of Swerney, Goodney, and of Medgar Evers. There are going to be no more unpunished murders. They've been telling you that the kids in Nashville started a riot. Number one, you ought to recognize it is not a riot, it is a rebellion. A rebellion. And number two, you ought to be proud of your black brothers and sisters at Fifth, because a honky cop touched one of them and they told him you got to touch all of us.
Welcome, welcome all listeners and viewers here at home, in the Caribbean, in the wider region, in the wider diaspora, to the Emancipation Support Committee of Trinidad and Tobago's fourth and final lecture in our 26th edition of the Kwame Ture Memorial Lecture Series. We're really pleased to be with you here again on another Sunday. It's an exciting Sunday for us. The theme of this year's Kwame Ture Memorial Lecture Series, you will remember, was Decolonizing the Mind. And in our first lecture, which was by Professor Lewis Gordon, we looked at decolonizing the mind, the relevance of Fanon to the modern Caribbean. It was an exciting lecture. It was face-to-face. It was at the University of Trinidad and Tobago's hall, and it was just a dynamic, wonderful lecture. And since then, we have been online. And we've had two other lectures in the series. First, we talked about the miseducation of the African child. And there we had two educators and one young person who had just graduated from secondary school, completed her A-levels, and was on her way to University of the West Indies. We had a very interesting discussion about what does it take to decolonize the child in the education system. And then that was followed by a discussion on reparatory justice and reparations, led by our own Dr. Claudius Fergus, who is chair of the Trinidad and Tobago Reparations Committee. And we had a colleague in from Geneva, Dr. Michael McEachran, and he sits on the UN Forum for People of African Descent. So we had a really stirring and sterling discussion on the issue of reparations. Are we at the beginning or are we at the end? And here we are in the last lineup of our lectures, and we are talking about decoding public spaces. And today's closing panel, we explore this issue of our public spaces, or the architecture of our public spaces, and we look forward, of course, to your participation in this discussion. Now, public spaces refers to those spaces that are accessible to everyone. Most communities have what we deem public and private spaces. A gated community, as we are all familiar with, is not a public space. It may have spaces within it, but they are not public. But no matter where they are located, public spaces function as community-based spaces, notwithstanding the differences in their size or spatial patterns. These spaces are packed with symbols that have been a part of the life of our spaces for centuries. So decoding public spaces seeks to help us understand the use of symbols, signs, and meanings that convey cultural, social, and political messages in our public spaces. These symbols can take many forms, from iconic landmarks and monuments to street names that are used to communicate a wide range of ideas and values. We, the public, interact with what exists in those spaces, including its architecture, murals, sculptures, installations, and sometimes even live performances. Through our interaction, it is expected that a sense of community and connection will be fostered. Research suggests that ideal public spaces enhance public life, influences the psychological and social life of the people who utilize them, and even goes so far as to influence people's experience and behavior. We are reminded by our opening lecture of the KTMLS when Professor Lewis Gordon said that the institutions of power in the region are still colonized. And these institutions of power he defined as governance, religion, education systems, and architecture. So of course, this evening we are talking about that architecture that exists in our public spaces. And before we actually begin that discourse, and we have two very exciting presenters for you this evening, Our lead discussant is Shabaka Kambon, who is the director of Caribbean Freedom Project and chair of the committee, editor and architect of the Civil Society Report on Monuments that Glorify Racism and White Supremacy. He's also a member of the Afro Project team, which is a project of the Emancipation Support Committee, and he is the racial and social justice representative on that body. Our respondent is a very exciting young woman that we are really pleased to have. Her name is Ishma Warimi, and I hope I've pronounced it correctly. And she is a decolonial artist, anti-racist performer from Peru, who is now resident in Madrid. And I'll tell you more about her. She's an intercultural manager in her own indigenous, seen as a collector of that indigenous culture and recognized by the Ministry of Culture of Peru as a protector of the archaeological heritage of the Armantambo, which is part of the Inca Trail. So we're going to have a very interesting evening. So we're happy that you've joined us. Before we actually open the panel discussion, we're going to invite you to view a film called No Pride in Genocide.
I just wanted to ask a question about this argument we've heard a lot about, oh, if you go after one statue, then we'll have to go after all the statues, which, I mean, first of all, that says a lot about our culture, that it's strewn about with unjust figures. I mean, what does that say about the country?
It is time to teach the truth and remove the lies and oppression. It is time to remove the commemorations of hate, bigotry, and colonization.
You said take him down. Columbus must fall. Take him down. Columbus must fall. Take him down. We take no pride in genocide. We take no pride in genocide. O'Malley said it already.
Sure.
Emancipate yourself from mental.
Why should you have to bow to these things?
Remove the monuments and statues. Reclaim your space, reclaim your name and your glory. Colonialism, we take no pride in your genocide. Slavery, indentureship, or apartheid. Well, if we take no pride in your genocide, reparation, no justice, we find it inside time. Confront the evil wrongs that have been done, so we can never, ever, ever forget.
We say to Christopher Columbus today, the time is up.
Oh yes, we can never, ever, ever forget. Cause if we forget, and history repeat itself.
Now we want to do this peacefully, but we have to always
if we forget, and history repeat itself, then the shame is not on them, it's on us. So I want to see you fire. Blaze up them vampires. I want to see you fire. But down them oppressors. Yeah, 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 yeah.
Take down Nelson! Take down Nelson!
Take down Nelson! Take down Nelson! Marcus Garvey said it already.
We must canonize our own
There's
faith.
no future for people who deny their past.
Because my work has only just begun.
Wake up, my people, get ready. Confront the past to free the future at last. Colonialism, we take no pride in your genocide. Fireburn Columbus and all his armies. Well, look, we take no pride in your genocide. Reparation, now we write the wrong of our history. Confront the evil wrongs that been done. Never, ever, ever forget. Confront the evil that's been done, yeah. Never, ever, never forget. Cause if we forget, then history repeats itself. Then the shame is not on them, it's on us. Well, if we forget, then history repeats itself. Shame is
them oppressors.
Part of a global movement to take down symbols of oppression.
London, Sydney, Seoul, Tunis, Cape Town.
Remove the monuments and them statues. Reclaim your space, reclaim your name and your glory. Colonialism, we take no pride in the genocide. Slavery and dictatorship or apartheid. Well, if we take no pride in the genocide, we're raising no justice for the man, yes, society. Confront the evil wrong that's been done, so we can never, ever, ever forget.
We will not protect monuments built to honor some of the biggest criminals in U.S. history.
Never, ever, ever forget. Well, if we forget, then history repeats itself. Shame is not a damage on us. Well, if we forget, oh, history repeats itself. Then shame is not a damage on us. So I wanna see your fire.
Say, you devil, you coming down.
Vampires. I wanna see your fire. Come and have it burn down them oppressors. Blaze it up, blaze it up. Whoa, blaze it up, blaze it up. Blaze it up, blaze it up. Blaze it up, blaze it up.
There is no force on earth that can stop an idea whose time has come.
The mission of our generation is the mental emancipation of our people.
Well, that certainly is an exciting way to begin this evening's discussion. And I'm sure Shabaka will tell us more about how they engaged in the production of this piece of work. And we acknowledge and really thank and give praises to Sheldon Blackman for his music and his courage and following in his father's tradition and his family tradition of supporting the cause of the liberation of their people. So Shabaka, the floor is now yours.
Right, so the task today is pretty straightforward. Decoding public spaces, and of course, in fine print, power, memory, and monuments. So let's start by talking about, brothers and sisters, ladies and gentlemen, the historical context in which we are having this conversation, the historical context which we just saw on that short film / music video. And we have to go back to the public murder of George Floyd on May 25th, 2020 in Minneapolis, Minnesota. Captured in or on horrific video, it ignited what was possibly the largest protest movement in the history of the United States of America. 15 to 26 million people by all estimates. Known as the Black Lives Matter movement, it transcended the United States to inspire waves of protest around the world, involving the widespread defacement, removal, and toppling of monuments, and triggering debates about their role in perpetuating structural racism and white supremacy, the deadly and enduring consequences of European colonialism. The Black Lives Matter movement spread out across the world following historical lines of colonial violence to places where dangerous continuities persist. And it's interesting when you do the research, because it went to places like Greenland. You know, you wouldn't think that there'd be a need for a Black Lives Matter movement in Greenland or in Australia, in parts of Asia. But everywhere in the world that colonialism went, they established whiteness and blackness, first class and second class citizenship. And whether you were Inuit, Indian, or African, or Native American, you were going to be, confined to that second class citizenship. And so when the Black Lives Matter movement erupted, it went to all those places where, as I say, dangerous continuities persist. And of course, it would be no surprise that that movement found its place, its way to the Caribbean, where we are still grappling with the legacies of empire. George Floyd was publicly executed in May of 2020. In June, the following month, the BLM movement was announced in the Caribbean by none other than the Vice Chancellor of the University of the West Indies, Sir Hilary Beckles, who declared emphatically, "This is our cause." U.S. embassies featured prominent revocations for the protest, along with colonial monuments across many islands. These included countries such as the Bahamas, these are CARICOM countries, Guyana, Jamaica, Barbados, Trinidad and Tobago, and St. Vincent and the Grenadines. In Hispanophone countries such as the Dominican Republic and Puerto Rico, and island colonies like Francophone Martinique and Guadeloupe, and Neerlandophone countries like Curaçao. Caribbean nations were forced to confront the veneration of the icons of imperialism, especially in their capital cities. In Barbados, following protracted protests ramping up in the wake of the Rose Must Fall movement, a statue of the defender of slavery Lord Horatio Nelson was removed from its plinth in Heroes Square in the heart of Bridgetown. Questions about the monument's legitimacy go back to the days of the Black Power movement, which cohered around newspapers Black Star and Manjuk in the 1960s, and the Yoruba House movement in the 1970s, and with the popular eruption of the Rastafarian movement in that same period, and its raging against the institutions of Babylon. Imbued in the spirit of the time, Barbados took the step to become a republic in 2021. In Jamaica, the Governor General, Sir Patrick Allen, suspended the use of the Grand Cross of the Most Distinguished Order of St. Michael and St. George, an insignia associated with a knighthood bestowed upon those in his position by the Queen. He deemed it offensive. The medallion featured a dark-skinned Satan with what appears to be Afro-coiled hair or locks, with his head or neck under the foot of a white blonde angel in a manner reminiscent of the public murder of George Floyd. Some activists used the opportunity to call not only for the removal of the insignia, but the position of the Governor General as well, as part of a broader conversation about post-independence transformation, very much in the vein of Barbados, and the next country, Trinidad and Tobago, where challenges to colonial monuments go back, like Barbados, at least to the Black Power movement in the late 60s. The ideas of the leaders of the National Joint Action Committee, or NJAC, actually underpinned the protest action which started in 2017 with the advent of the Caribbean Freedom Project and its Crossroads campaign. By 2018, local efforts have resulted in the removal of the name of the white supremacist Alfred Milner from the oldest hall of residence at the University of the West Indies St. Augustine campus, and attention had been brought to bear on the public veneration of Christopher Columbus, the initiator of genocide and slavery in the Caribbean, and Comte de Lopineau, the brutal French enslaver and slave catcher, honored as illustrious in a plantation complex at the scene of his crimes. In July of 2020, the Freedom Project, with the support of the Warao Nation, the Emancipation Support Committee, and other prominent members of society and organizations, petitioned the Parliament of the Republic of Trinidad and Tobago to establish a national committee to develop a comprehensive plan to identify, destroy, repurpose, or reconstitute any monuments, memorials, emblems, signs, symbols, or the like that celebrate, commemorate, and glorify racism and white supremacy, and any form or other of colonial violence. 2 years later, in 2022, a committee was appointed by the government was appointed by the government, and in 2024, with the country awaiting the report, Columbus's 3 ships were removed from the National Coat of Arms. Now, I'm getting a message that I should improve my mic. Let me see if I can find it here. So I'm going to plug in and continue the presentation. So moving across the region, this would be on air. Right, okay. So moving across the region now, we go to the island of Martinique, and I hope I'm being heard. And in Martinique, in French territory of Martinique, protests went further than it did in anywhere else in the region. Statues of Empress Josephine, the Martinican wife of Napoleon Bonaparte, Pierre Beleng d'Istanbul, the so-called discoverer, the Columbus of Martinique and Guadeloupe, who founded the colony in 1635, and abolitionist Victor Schœlcher were toppled by mass action. The latter generating extra debate because, of course, he was not a colonizer but a reformer. Activists justified their actions by claiming that Schœlcher had been used by the French state to obscure the fact that they had freed themselves 1 month before the proclamation abolishing slavery in French colonies had reached the island of Martinique on June 3, 1848. The Schœlcher monuments were toppled on the 22nd of May 2020 to coincide with the anniversary of the people's historic victory over imperialism. Now, critics of these actions have argued that the masses of the people were vandalizing and destroying tangible history and heritage during this period. But was that really the case? To make sense of these extraordinary events, we must understand something about public monuments and their significance. And again, I'm being asked to change locations, let's see, to improve the sound today. So here I am, and I want to believe that the sound is now better. Let's see, I'm going to keep this as my sound, as my visual.
Shabaka, you've got to put on your take off your mute. You are muted. We're unable to hear you now.
Okay, am I coming across clearly at this point?
Yes, now it's better.
So then I do not need this. And let's see. So now are you hearing me clearly? Okay. All right, so what we're saying is that to make sense of these extraordinary events which took place during the Black Lives Matter movement, we must understand something of the significance of public monuments and what they are. And let me say that all monuments are established either by the state or individuals and civic groups with power and influence at specific historical moments as tangible representations of great achievements or heroic figures, as defined by the values or interests of those who erect them. All monuments. This may surprise many of you in our audience today, but the civic statues so common across the world today were unusual even in early modern Europe. It was not until the middle of the 18th century, the height of the colonial era, when the makers of the modern city erected public memorials of great men, as much as they ordered public museums and archives. Scholars have studied these material legacies of empire and have noted the choice of individuals commemorated, the style of the monuments erected, their placement in prominent locations, and the way they minimize the violence, exploitation, and injustice inherent in the process of colonization, and concluded that they are really carefully considered imperialist strategies to assert dominance and shape public memory in their present and in the future. In the words of Guyanese scholar Richard Drayton, they seek to command the values of the living and the unborn. British social anthropologist Alfred Gell shares Drayton's sentiment, asserting that agency can inhere in these graven images, and that they can be vectors of the values of those whom they glorify and those who erected them. Having concluded that monument erection under colonial occupation was, and this is how Fanon put it, the dominant colonizer group condescending to trample on the humanity, dignity, and intelligence of the subjugated colonized group or groups by erecting public reverential monuments to the figures that had distinguished themselves in the enterprise of subjugating them, and asserting that he asserted that the effect consciously sought by colonialism, by imperialism, was to convince the natives that colonialism had come to lighten their darkness, that if the settlers were to leave, they would at once fall back into barbarism, degradation, and bestiality. Having articulated the way he saw this phenomenon, Fanon concluded in a manner that foreshadows what happened during the Rhodes Must Fall and Black Lives Matter movements, that imperialism leaves behind germs of rot, tangible expressions of colonial epistemic violence, which he said we must clinically detect and remove not just from our lands, but our minds as well. Now here's the interesting thing we discover when we begin to look critically at these colonial monuments in the manner that Fanon instructed us to, in the manner that Fanon would have hoped we would have done at independence. What we discover is that Fanon's sentiment was actually shared across the entire world during the period of independence. With decolonization, the triumphantist representations of colonialism across the landscape of both Europe and its former colonies became at once potentially anachronistic, embarrassing, and offensive. In Europe, monuments to some colonial worthies were shifted to obscure locations, while others remained with their deeds increasingly unrecalled, facing the prospect of despoilment, destruction, or repurposing. In one example from Bremen, Germany, a statue of an elephant erected in 1932 to honor soldiers killed in colonial operations in Africa was redesignated as an anti-colonial monument to honor the victims of German colonial rule in Namibia. In the former colonies, there were efforts to change the narrative, to end the open glorification of imperialism, and to erect monuments highlighting heroic struggles against colonialism and the martyrdom of freedom fighters. India, under Jawaharlal Nehru, provides a great example. In the 1950s, the country undertook a comprehensive removal of monuments dedicated to figures such as King George V, Queen Victoria, and a whole host of governors, viceroys, lords, ladies, and military generals. In 1972, the statue of the Earl of Auckland was replaced by one of India's most iconic statues, that of Khudiram Bose, hailed for braving the British gallows with a smile on his face at the tender age of 19, after he was sentenced to death for opposing the rule of empire. Of course, at the same time in the Caribbean, we see critical evidence of a similar critical perspective on colonial monuments. In 1954, we had the bombing of the Queen Victoria statue in Georgetown by activists Roy Westmus and future poet laureate Martin Carter, both now deceased. Further work needs to be done to establish the extent to which these militant attitudes displayed by our Guyanese brothers and sisters were shared across the region in this period. But we have considerable evidence that colonial monuments were not accepted uncritically even before independence. These attitudes were bolstered by the spirit of independence, of course, the spirit of black power, and the Treaty of Chaguaramas, which established the Caribbean community after in the 1960s and 70s. And there were monumental efforts across the region to rename monuments, to remove monuments, to rename streets and plazas, to design new signs and symbols, to erect new monuments, to celebrate the new ideals of independence, and to honor those figures who have championed Caribbean freedom during the long night of colonialism. Yet, in short measure, unfortunately, as time passed, the citizenry in both Europe and its former colonies became further removed from the heights, as they became further removed from the heights of colonial and anti-colonial preoccupations. The imperialist versions of the past embedded in the landscape, the imperialist narratives embedded in our landscapes attain a greater degree of legitimacy and security. Contrast the heyday of ideas of modernization in the middle of the 20th century, when no one questioned if and why India removed its heroic statues of British figures to a public park. They dumped them there. With the period around the time of BLM 2019, 2020, 2021, when there were so many people who felt proud to cling to the relics of their racist colonial past as heritage. Okay, so my time is running out. So let me run through this thing, the important points that we need to take in here quickly. The person who best explains this historical phenomenon, this global uprising, I think, is Michel Love-Trillo, the Haitian scholar who wrote Silencing the Past. He says that at some stage, for reasons that are themselves historical, collectivities experience the need to impose a test of credibility on certain events and narratives, not just because it matters to them whether these events are true or false, but because of the stakes involved. Right? When the masses entered history in the way they did in 2019, 2020, 2021, 2022, to create history, to produce history in the way that they did all across the world, he says that the stakes were high, and he speaks to the credibility that they had to impose. It was something that they had to do on certain events and narratives. And I want us to focus on the question of the narratives, because we only have a few minutes left. And the narratives, just to break it down into the simplest terms, the narrative of imperialism is discovery. The narrative of independence says that discovery is really invasion and occupation. Discovery is a narrative in which the people who are so-called discovered are inferior, in need of protecting and civilizing, and the people who are doing the discovering are superior in some way, and that in the process of discovering, they are advancing those people who are being discovered. When we arrive at a critique of discovery, which is what is really embedded in our landscapes, and which is what is really encoded in our public spaces. As we said, the monuments that we have in the Caribbean are largely colonial monuments. Colonialism is a period of great violence, which includes genocide, slavery, indentureship, and apartheid. It is the values that underpinned the civilization which conducted that violence, which is encoded or embedded in the monuments which they erected, which British social anthropologist Alfred Gell says will continue to operate through those monuments as long as they stand. And so and of course, all of those things can be encapsulated into the term discovery. And once we arrive at that critique of discovery, where we can see it for what it was, an invasion and genocidal occupation of the region, which included slavery, indentureship, and apartheid until 1962, and even after 1962, then we begin to understand what we need to critique these monuments and to advance our Caribbean civilization one step further. So I'm going to close there because I think that really makes the point. And when it comes to the question and answer period, we'll get into more details. Okay.
Right. Thank you very much, Martha. I think you left us a very interesting point. Are you hearing me?
Yes.
Okay. I'm hearing a sort of a back feed. I hope that's not, maybe, yes. Okay, so what I think we can hold on to before we open the floor for our next, and I want to introduce our next panelist, is the notion that you have shared with us, Shabaka, which is encoded in our landscape, is the colonial violence. Encoded in our landscape is colonial violence. And I want to ask our listeners to think about that as we hear and listen to our next panelist, and then we will open the floor for some discussion around those issues and what our young sister is going to present. Now, we have Sister Ishma Waremi, who is an Ishma woman, and she is an artist, an anti-racist performer from Peru, resident, as I mentioned earlier, in Madrid. She's an intercultural manager in the Colectivo Ishma de Tapu, recognized by the Ministry of Culture of Peru. And I was particularly touched by this, protector of the archaeological heritage of the Armatombo, which is part of the Inca Trail. And I hope you'll tell us a little bit about that. Creation of one-woman shows, monologues, director of collective performers, and participation in different festivals in Peru, Brazil, and Spain. I think what I particularly liked as well is that she said in recent years, she has directed the urban intervention in the Plaza Colón in Madrid with an art event, which my Spanish isn't that good, so I won't say the whole word, and she will tell us. The 12th of October is no reason for celebration in English. So she says, let's decolonize ourselves, because October 12th has nothing to celebrate. So with that, I introduce you and I give you the floor. Ishma Waremi, the floor is yours. Thank you so much for joining us.
Ajintuta, Ajin Punchao y Mainaya, Nyohaha Ishma Warmi, Nyohaha Jacqueline Cani, Nyoha Ishma in Madrid. Hi everyone. How are you? I am Ishma Warmi or Woman Ishma or Jacqueline. Ishma is the name of the culture pre-Inca. Is the culture before the Incanate empire in Peru. Is from I am where. Sorry by my English, but I refuse to speak in English because for me it's the language of the colonizer. Is the language represents all the power of the colonization right now in the world. No? But now I am trying to talk so. If you don't understand, please make the translation. Please, Chabaka. Actually, I live in Madrid. I am an activist, decolonial, because when I travel, when I left Peru, I see how the world and how the white people in the North Global still take the order colonial in their life, no, in the system. No? So when I arrive in Spain, I meet to my partners, migrants and racials, women racialized from Palestine, Brazil, Bolivia, Peru, Abya Yala, all the South America, Mesoamerica. And so I see how the immigration law in Spain is too colonialist and make a big difference between the white people in Spain and the brown and black people here, all the communities, migrants here. And so I see how is that difficult life here for all the people that are not Spanish. So every day is a situation racist or on the subway and the bars and the road all the time, in the store all the time. Now we are in a point critical in the conjuncture in Spain because the party politic called Vox they want make a big deportation of persons migrants here. They want to deport because they say, oh, we are scared because every year coming a lot of people, and so one day that just the people Spanish will be the minority, and the migrants go to be the majority. And so they have fear, they are scared about us. And so now in Murcia, there is a very protest of white people, Spanish, ask deportation of people of Morocco or Africa or brown like me. In Madrid all the time, we pass situations very critical about the police, how make take the violence versus the brown and black people in the center of Madrid. And so we, my sisters and brothers from Amjayala, every year, just 12 years, we make a movement called 12 of October nothing to celebrate. So we make a reivindicative commemoration, remember our ancestors, as we all the year all year ask to the government of Spain the take off the festive day of 12th of October, because for us it's not a party, for us it's a symbol of genocide. For us is, until now, actually is a pain, is an ancestral pain. For my grandmother, for all my ancestors, because many people died shouting freedom, or shouting against the colonizers. And so the colonization, the process colonization, never finished. So for us, the colonization is now legalized, because before they take off the gold, but now they take off the lithium, cobalto, petroleum, oil, gas, take off, always take off, from my territories, from our territories, in South America, Mesoamerica, Central America, in Abjayala. And so all the time we make incidents politic on the street, with this mobilization, 12th of October, nothing to celebrate, in the Place of Colón, because they are big place, call it Place of Colón, because they have a big statue of Colón here. In that place, the parties or politics, Partido Popular Vox, from the right, they make a meetings there, because it's a symbol for them. And so the 11th of October, we make a ceremony. We make a big ceremony of our lands, of our ancestors, with community from Bolivia, Peru, Chile, Brazil, with another peoples, originaries like Mapuches, Guaranis, Palestine, from another countries of Africa also. And so we remember, to our ancestor, with dance, with theater, with poetry. We write a big manifest. We wrote a manifest, and so we make a big reivindication. We are not dead. We are the descendants of that people who died, and we are here. We don't go. We still here. We are the resistance. Now we resist. We make the resistance every day here. So when my sister and brothers call me and say, "Oh, and again the police stopped me, asked me my documentation just because I'm black, just because I'm brown, just because I'm not Spanish." And so we have to call to lawyers, we have to call to friends, white people, allies, for help us, for help to our partners, in that situation. But and so we still working about this, working about how they colonize the mind, because many people also from South America and Central America is colonized because they don't have identity because they were born in Spain. No, and that's the phenotypic are brown and black people, but they were born here in Spain, but they feel Spanish, and so they refuse the racism. And so we have to make a work of making a workshop about how to fight against the regimes, how to fight against the colonialism, no? How to fight versus against the right, no, the fascists, no, and the Zionists, because the Zionist is here also present in all the movements politics about the right, because Israel is not just a danger for Palestine. No, Israel is in our territories. Israel is in Uruguay. Israel has a enterprise called Mekorot, and they are privatizing the water. And now Israel is entering Patagonia, Argentina, because they know the water in the future will be the coin of the chains, the coin for survive. And so in Peru, unfortunately, they also, with enterprise, a lobby in mobiliaries. And so it's a big danger. It's a big danger. Entonces, for us, the Zionists represent the purity of the colonialism. And so here in Spain, we all the time try to decode the public space, because that public space don't represent the actually population in Spain, because Spain is not the same. Spain is changed. Spain has a population of all the world. Very generations from the 80s are working here, and so they want the right. They paid the I don't remember how to say impuestos. Well, the pay they pay, and so the population, immigrant and racialized, brings too much to the society Spanish here, and so is just want to live in the same comfort of the white people here, because in our territories the enterprise from the north of Lowell take off our resources, make a big conflict there, politics, and so the population has to get out. And so when arrive here, try to survive, and so have to fight against the racists, the fascists here, no, about the immigration law. The white people don't understand, don't understand the privilegios. They are people privilege. I don't remember how to say privilegios. Privilege. And so it's very difficult, but we make the big resistance every day, and so we don't live here. But always we have present our identity, no? Is still here. We don't change our minds. We still present for all happened since 12th of October and 1492. And so for us, it's a genocide. And for us, we hope someday that big ancestral, how do you say, problem, herida, well, someday will be repaired someday, but for that, too many things have to make a justice. Just not Spain, it's just that all the global north, no, for all make, for all the genocide, for still in our territories, for all the violence systematic we pass every day, and so we don't forget, because we still here, we don't move it, we still fighting for the next generation, and always have present in the center of the light to the Mother Earth, always to the Pachamama, always the Mother Earth don't belong us. No, we are children of the Mother Earth. She is the very principle. She is our guide for make all our movements. So first the Mother Earth, first the Pachamama, and later the humanity, and later all of the stuff. But 12 de octubre, nada que celebrar. 12 of October, nothing to celebrate.
Oh my, we thank you. Thank you so very, very much, sister. Thank you. And we know it's late in the night for you, and so you really made this time to join us, and we absolutely we feel it a privilege that you've been able to join us this evening and share some of those ideas with us. And particularly pleased that you spoke about decolonizing the mind, what a job it is. We have to do it for ourselves, and then we have to spread that notion around so that people understand that they're functioning, as you said, with some privileges that don't belong to them, and that they should not have, because unfortunately they were the instruments of colonization. And you also, yes?
Please, I would like to show you some pictures, 2 or 3. I have to. Can I to share the screen?
I'm wondering. Yes, I should think so. Try sharing your screen and see what happens. I'm not sure if our administrator has given that privilege, but she will be hearing us, and so she will try to make that a possibility.
Oh, share a screen.
Yeah, does that work? I don't think so. I have a feeling not. I'm going to send a message to see if it becomes possible. Yes, you can do it. Try sharing your screen. Do you see that little box down there with the plus sign?
See, I want to see. We try to knock down the statue of Colon also.
No, but it hasn't quite reached the ground yet, I gather.
Yeah, and so I want to show you, but I don't have. Did you see?
Oh, there we go. We see it. Wow, wow, wow.
And so the statue of Colon is too high.
Yes,
and
really
so
high.
we
no,
we try, and so we can, and so we led a big cartel called Fire to the Order Colonial.
Okay, that's what it says. Fire to the Old Colonial. Very, very good.
Yeah, too much people go. We block.
Very, very good. This is very interesting.
I don't know how to make to share.
Okay, thank you very, very much. That was okay. Now let's see if we have any questions or comments between the two of you, and I will invite our listeners, if they have any questions or comments, do send them to us, and we will be more than pleased to share those questions.
In the meantime, I just want to make some connections. My sister had talked about Israel, and for all those people across the world who are concerned about the question of historical colonialism, historical imperialism. Israel is really sort of a contemporary case that we watch closely. Of course, we condemn as well. What is interesting about Israel from the perspective of monuments, we get to see how we end up with these monuments. So if you go to Israel today, the person who is most celebrated on streets, plazas, monuments, etc., is a man called Ze'ev Jabotinsky. He is a figure who would have described Israel as the Israel he was founding and bringing into being. He was the Columbus of Israel in a sense, as a colonizing adventure. He was very clear that about the question of the role of armed force in the colonizing adventure that he and his colleagues were embarking on in the land of Palestine. And so, again, you see where, according to Fanon, the person who really starts the enterprise, the primordial colonizer, becomes the most celebrated figure. That's why across the Americas, Columbus streets, names, monuments, entire territories, there's an entire country named after Columbus, which is Colombia. And I'll tell you that there was a fight over the name because the United States of America wanted to call themselves the United States of Colombia. At some point, Colombia beat them to it. That is because the imperialist project always looks back at its founder as a point of celebration. Fanon talks about it. That's the first set of monuments that appear on the landscape. And then thereafter, they then embed all the other narratives, all the other colonial victories, the colonial heroes, the people who distinguished themselves in genocide, slavery, indentureship, and apartheid, are then erected across the landscape. And of course, the lies that underpin these people are what is actually celebrated. So I'll give you an example from Trinidad. And of course, these colonial monuments hide other narratives. It's not just that they are false narratives themselves, but they bury other narratives or other truths that exist in the society. And I like to use this example from Trinidad. We celebrate Governor Woodford, one of that long line of British governors who were extraordinary white supremacists. And that narrative, that story of Woodford that we celebrate, him being handsome and fixing up Port of Spain and buying the Queen's Park Savannah for us all to enjoy and things like that, does not just obscure the fact that he hated non-white people and did everything in his power to make the life of non-white people exceedingly hard. But the fact that there was, during the time of Woodford, a movement in Port of Spain led by a man called Reverend Francis de Ridder for equality and equal rights in Trinidad and Tobago. And the fact that at independence, we continue to celebrate Woodford with two monuments in both cathedrals, the plaza in the middle of Port of Spain, streets named after him, cafes named after him, while Francis de Ridder, who sacrificed his life for the freedoms we enjoy today. And just to make this clear, Francis de Ridder is the Trinidadian who organized the first desegregated school and desegregated church, where children of all races could come and study together and worship together in this country. This is a country that says we pride ourselves on giving an example to the world of equality. And in this country, right, the man who organized the first desegregated school and desegregated church has been erased from history. And his nemesis, the man who persecuted him to death, Governor Woodford, continues to be celebrated. So what we encode in our public spaces also buries certain stories. The colonials chose to emphasize certain things which would advance their agenda. And in the process, they buried the stories of our ancestors who would have thwarted their agenda. So in that orgy of white supremacy, Woodford was celebrated. Of course, Derrida was erased. And we see the same thing with my sister's people in Peru, or if we go to Chile, or Uruguay, or Argentina, we see the same phenomenon. Tupac, Amaru, and others like that, erased, moved to the margins. In Martinique, the reason why the Martinican people took such a toll on Victor Schœlcher's statues, and that was a controversial matter, because Schœlcher is an abolitionist. And so when you have an abolitionist honored in your space, with statues, streets named after him, I think there's a library named after Schœlcher, and maybe a school as well in Martinique, you would think that that's a good thing. But the people knew better. They understood that the French had imposed Schœlcher's celebration on the people of Martinique for a particular reason. There's a reason why the British didn't need to impose Wilberforce Street in Trinidad and Wilberforce School. They had another narrative going, that the Queen and the King had given us emancipation. They didn't need to impose anything else. They were the first country in the world to grant emancipation. They had created a whole narrative there. Every country in the world had enslaved people, and they were the first country to grant emancipation. And then they went and fought for other countries to end this evil institution of slavery. So they didn't need to impose a Wilberforce, but the French coming into Martinique, many people had actually freed themselves before the French petition for the French statement on emancipation had arrived in Martinique. They needed to remove that history from people's thing, because they didn't want the people to have that sense of independence. And so they used Schœlcher. And the people were not foolish, they understood it. And on the anniversary of the day that they freed themselves, they got rid of all Schœlcher monuments.
Okay, that's an amazing story. Very interesting. I'm going to ask Sis. She wants to share another picture of something that they've done on the 12th of October. Do you want to try again? We can't hear you because you're muted. Is she? Ishma, you're muted. Just open your microphone. I think your microphone is muted.
Yes.
Okay. See,
Yes.
yeah.
Okay,
Sorry.
right.
Yeah.
Okay, so leave it like that now, and you can go.
We made this. This is the okay. Can you see? Can you see?
Something?
Can you see?
Not yet. Did you? Okay, it's coming up. Ah, very nice.
People from South America, Central America, Mesoamerica.
Yeah.
People of Jinaris and community.
Right, decolonize ourselves.
Yeah, my sister, this reminds me of a protest march we were involved in Ecuador. I think you were there, where we went to on 12th of October to protest a Columbus monument in was it Quito, and those who were fans of imperialism got there before us and sprinkled rose petals and flower petals all around the monument to let us know that it was beloved. That colonial narrative of discovery was beloved before we got there. Of course, we trampled on those petals. Do you remember that one?
Okay. I will finish. Can you stop the sharing because I don't.
Okay.
Okay, okay, thanks.
Right. Okay. Now, Ishima, you mentioned the fact that um, the 12th of October is a symbol of genocide and ancestral pain, and that's so. In a sense, that's the hidden code inside that celebration. And you have asked. You're working to transform that, if I understand you, to say that this is nothing we should celebrate and it's an opportunity to decolonize ourselves and our minds. Do you want to share with us some of the workshops maybe that you engage in to help in the decolonization of the minds?
Okay. If I understand your question, if we make a big assembly
Yes.
from September, October, 2 months, for we make a big convocatory in our social net, and many people coming, young, mayor, right? And we explain about we do no every year in the for us is a motivation principle for finish the colonization here, about the symbols, no, about the dates festive for Spain. And so we make workshops, make like ateliers, education, decolonization, about the history of the process colonial in our territories, and well, all the process, no, all of it. And so the people coming is listen, and start to understand. White people also coming, Spanish and European people, and so try to understand. So many people every year is like allies persons for us, to help us with the song, with the music, no, with the transportation, no. When coming the police, when the police coming, they put the body, no, what happened, because they are white people, no. So hey, thank you, brothers and sisters, you are white people, so please you can put a body for us, no? It's your territory, it's your country. So we are we are the less privileged. So please, and so it's the real aliens, no? It's the real aliens in this place, no? So can I see, no? And so the white people see, yeah, I understand. And so it's a word, my month by month, or my month, year by year, year by year. Yeah. But last year, we were victims of an aggression, racism, because we are preparing the ceremony in the place of color, and so we start to finish the ceremony and to ask to our ancestors, but white people very jam white people coming and shout, 12 de octubre, como lo volveríamos a hacer. 12 of October, we will do it again. We will do it again.
We'll do it again. Yes, yes, yes.
So
Yes,
we,
that is the right
they,
wingism. Yes, that is taking root.
they were filming on the Instagram live,
Yes.
on live. And so we call to the police. No, hey, please, can you see the degradation? No, because our activity is we have the permission for do it. And so the police say, yeah, I go, no, I go. No, go slowly there, no? And the young people have one young have a knife in the back.
Yeah.
And so they go shouting, "We will go tomorrow. We come back tomorrow." And we all the night we are calling to our white people alliance friends, please, partners, coming tomorrow because they people. They coming, maybe they are big problem. So yeah, we go. And so in the 12th of October, in our principal activity of reivindicative, nothing to celebrate, many white people coming make the support for us. Yeah.
Oh, that was very good. That was very good, very good.
This year, we are preparing a big reivindicative because they come back. They will come back. They will come back. So
yes,
we are still we are making. No, they don't know how to do that, but we are with the courage for make a big kundo or big warrior Mapuche. We are here and we don't go from here.
Don't surrender.
We have the right.
Yes,
yes. It's the resistance. It's a resistance.
It's a wonder. Yes. It is a struggle. It is a continuous struggle.
And I think that this is an important point to highlight the fact that right now in the Caribbean, the whole world, Columbus, during this period of the Black Lives Matter movement, which I highlighted, Columbus was the most decommissioned figure. Across the Americas, everywhere Columbus statues fell. More than any other single historical individual, Columbus statues were removed. Yet, in the Bahamas, a young man took a hammer and hit the Columbus statue in front of Government House in Nassau. And in October last year, he was convicted of a crime for doing this and fined. And we now have to launch a campaign, which we have begun, to have his conviction overturned in the Caribbean. So what I find extraordinary is that you would think that in a place like this, where we are the descendants of the victims of these crimes, in a place like the Bahamas, which is the epicenter, that's where Columbus landed, where he initiated the invasion and genocidal enslaving occupation of the Caribbean, that people there will be the most sensitive to this issue. But that seems to be the place where things are heading in the other direction. Of course, we hope that by highlighting this issue to the people of the Bahamas, they will realize that they made a mistake. But from what we see, the only global leader who is standing up for Columbus in any kind of vocal way is Donald Trump, the President of the United States of America. He has recently said that he intends to put those monuments that were removed back. He's been renaming things that were renamed during the Black Lives Matter movement. He's returning the original names. But even Columbus, Ohio, has removed its monument of Columbus and ditched Discovery Day. So it will be difficult for Trump to be able to change things in the United States of America. But the Caribbean is very, very backward. We even in Trinidad and Tobago, we still have a monument to Christopher Columbus, despite the fact that people have vandalized it in every form of fashion, or what my friends in New Orleans call beautifying it. They beautified it in all kinds of ways. They added red paint, they did this, they took off an arm, they removed his cross, etc., etc. He still remains. And we probably in the Caribbean have more Columbus monuments than anywhere else in the Americas put together. So we have some serious issues to address.
Okay. Well, brothers and sisters, time is now almost finished and run out on us. So I want to give issue Wamari, yes, the last words, and then Shabaka, I'll ask you to have a last word, and then I will close the program and thank all those people. And we've had a very wonderful reception of you, Ishi. People have been saying very good things on the chat, congratulating you, thanking you for sharing your information with us. So we really thank you for having been here with us. And if there's anything you'd like our population and everyone else in the wider diaspora who's been listening to the program, if there's anything you'd like them to remember, please tell us now.
Thank you. Thank you to you. Thank you for the invitation. Thank you. Yeah, and it's very important. It's very important to me that you do. It's very important a big initiative for talk about this. It's necessary to talk about it. It's necessary to make an articulation of our people, of our community, of our territories, no? To talk about this. For the young, no? For the future generation, no? For to start to decolonize the mind.
Mm-hmm.
So I would like to say, here in Spain, in Badajoz, in the network of Hernán Cortés, the colonizer of Mexico, Hernán Cortés, you know?
Yes.
Yeah, all the years, the government of Spain bring honors, military honors to him for his birthday, and the statue of Hernán Cortés is like this, and he has his foot on the head of person indigenous.
Yes.
One person indigenous is how do you say Shabaka pisar? Foot?
On the floor. He has a person on the floor.
That Hernán Cortés
is standing on his head.
He's knocking his head off the person indigenous. Like this. And the army Spain bring flowers, bring military honors all the years in his birthday. How is possible?
Yeah. So in closing, let me just say that we want to recognize those people in Spain, like yourself, and the native Spanish who oppose these kinds of memorials and celebrations of colonialism and genocide. I want to point out that when we launched this issue in Trinidad and Tobago, the Spanish ambassador at the time, a man called Carvajosa, he condemned our efforts to remove Christopher Columbus statue in particular. At the same time that Carvajosa was condemning our actions in Trinidad, Spain was removing all monuments to General Franco. And so the principle that if you commit crimes against humanity, if you commit mass murder and other atrocities, you should not be honored, was being upheld in Spain at the same time that Spain was telling us in the Caribbean that we should hold on to the greatest mass murderer in our history. And it's interesting the language that was used in Spain. The authorities in Spain said that Franco's celebration on streets, on plazas, etc., was incompatible with their democracy. Right? But argued that the celebration of Christopher Columbus and his invasion and genocidal occupation of the Caribbean was okay for us. So while removing their monsters in Spain, and in fact, there was a very secret process. Well, it wasn't secret, but it went under the radar. The Spanish actually removed a human trafficker from the period of enslavement of Africans, also from his print in that very same period, with the same argument that in Barcelona or Madrid or wherever his monument was removed, it was incompatible with their values and their democracy. At the same time, Serrano Sanders, from the ambassador from Antigua and Barbuda, had to write an open letter to Spain asking them to cease and desist from promoting the celebration of Columbus all across the region with their resources. And so we find that there's a lot of hypocrisy from the former imperialist powers, and a lot of naivety among our own leaders. And it's time for us to lift the lid on the reality so that we can step into a new day.
Okay, thank you very, very much, Shabaka. Thank you, Ishamawarmi. And let me say that just as a reminder to all those who participated and listened over the last few weeks with us, I remind you that when we started this conversation, we looked at the institutions of power that were still colonized in the Caribbean. And those were governance, religion, education systems, and architecture. And so today we close with our discussion on architecture. We thank all of you who participated, who've been listening in, who've shared questions and answers, who've listened and sent comments in. We thank you all. The Emancipation Support Committee wishes you, listen, we open with the blessing of the ground next week. And then on the 25th of July, we open the village. Those of you who are in Trinidad, come and join us. Bring your children. Bring your elders. Enjoy the celebration that takes place from July 25th and takes us right down to Emancipation Day, August 1st. We look forward to seeing you in the village. We look forward to seeing you with your family and your elders and your children. Thank you very much for joining us. Good night.